Welcome to SithasoDaisy5 Low Code. So what we're going to try and do here is to create a low-code application. When it comes to software engineering is all about solving problems. So even when you begin to start coding an application, you need to realize what kind of problem are you trying to solve. In this example, we're going to look at creating an address book that will be categorized, and also the people in the address book are going to be province-based, which basically means that we need to have relationships between the people that are going to capture in the address book, categories, and also the provinces that we will have. So you start the SithasoDaisy5 Low Code application. It's deployed in Vercel. It saves your designs and everything into the IndexedDB on the internet, and you can be able to actually download your project for use, whether locally or in relation to whatever you might want to do in the future. So this starts with an empty project. So we're going to create a project, and inside the project we're going to create tables, and in those tables we're going to create the fields that we're going to be using. So for now we're going to start with categories and provinces. So let's create a project first. Let's call it AddressBook. The database type, you can have Pocket-based, MySQL, REST, and Web SQL. Web SQL is IndexedDB. So we're going to be using IndexedDB in the meantime. So we're also going to call our database AddressBook, which basically means that the web will create an IndexedDB database called AddressBook. So the next thing that we do, if you want to change anything in the project, you can just go there, edit, and change it. For example, if you change the database to Pocket-based, it asks you the database URL, the username, and the password. If you change it to MySQL REST, which is MySQL, which is another database, we can change some of these things. So for now, we're just using IndexedDB Web SQL just as a demonstration. So you can delete your project if you want, but we're not going to do that. You can also clone it, create another copy. We're not going to do that yet, and you can also export it. So let's go to tables. So we are developing the address book. So we're going to have three tables here, one for contacts, one for provinces, and one for categories. So let's do that. Let's create a table, categories. It won't have a prefix. A single record in the categories is called the category, and many records are called categories. Okay, we want the height of our model to fit, the width to be 700 px. The primary key, we're going to define this later on. It's not going to have an auto increment field. Auto increment fields are fields that accumulate as you add records in the database. The display field is a field that's going to be used when you want to delete something for the confirmation. An alpha chooser, this is an alpha chooser, where, for example, if you have table information in your table, then you're able to select a selection like, for example, A, B, C, D in relation to the first name or full name of whatever contact that you have. And then a column chooser, this is a column chooser here, because if you choose this, it hides and shows a table. If you choose singular, it hides and shows the singular. And then we're going to use a table and a model here, so that when we adding records, like for example, clicking add here, then it shows a model. We're not going to use an API, so we save that. So it has created a categories table. So let's clone this, because we want to also create provinces. Now, provinces, it's a province, and its provinces. So the third table that we're going to need is contacts. We're going to clone this also. Contacts, it's a contact, it's contacts, because it's people that are going to be in the table. Now, our tables currently are blank because we have not created any fields in relation to them. So categories is going to work like a list, and provinces is going to work like a list, where, for example, you're going to capture the name of the province and then the name of the category. So because these are lists, what we can do is to use this create list functionality. What it does is to create 2 columns or 2 fields in that categories table called ID and name, and we'll do the same for this one. So let's do that. Let's click on create list. Are you sure that you want to set the fields to list? Say yes. And it has created 2 fields. And let's do the same with this one, provinces. Say yes. So what it has done is to create 2 columns or 2 fields in the table. Let's do the same also with this one. We can add other fields later on in the contacts. So now if you go to categories and you select fields, you'll realize that it has created 2 fields there. And then if you go back to contacts, it has created 2 fields there too. And if you go back to provinces, it has created 2 fields there too. So the primary key and display value for these needs to be specified. So what we do is to do an edit and select that the primary key is the ID, which means that on the column or field ID is going to be the primary key. The display value is the name. So when we want to delete a record, which field should be displayed? We're not going to have an alpha chooser because it's going to be a small table, and we're not going to have a column chooser because it's going to be a small table. So we select apply, and also here we can do the same for the contacts. The primary key is the ID, the display value is the name. We save it, and also we do the same here. So you need to indicate for each table which one is the primary key. A primary key is usually a unique column value that mustn't be the same. So currently we have created 3 tables within our project. So if you go back, this is the AddressBook project. It has tables inside, categories, contacts, and provinces, and categories have 2 fields. Now, if you want to see how this will look like when you are having a working application, you go to show model dialog. So this is going to have add category here. For example, we have hidden this particular field. So if you want to show it on our model form, we just select visible. And what we do then is it shows now. But we don't want this to show because it's going to be automatically generated by the code on our system. So we're going to make that one not visible. It's enabled. Yes. It's an active column. It's required, which basically means that it's compulsory. So we want an order by column, we order by the name. So all the things in the table will be ordered by name. So this is a text, and the column type is none, and then it's normal. So this is a text box here. All right. So as we can see in our preview of our application, our model, when we click add, it's going to say add category, and then it will ask us of the name, and it will say and then you can click no. If, for example, we wanted to change the title and say name of category, we can also do that. And automatically, when we preview our form, the label will be name of category. But because we already have add category here, then we can just use the old format to say name. Okay. So let's remove that. Click tab. So each and every column in our table needs to have a data type. So we'll change this to be string because our IDs are going to be text. For example, you can have a blob, a boolean, a date, a double, a file, an integer, and long text, or even none. A blob usually carries files. A boolean is yes or no. A date is a date. Like, for example, your normal date and time. A double is a value that has decimals. An integer is a value that does not have decimals and things like that. Long text is long text, like when we have a text area where we want to capture a lot of information. So we have changed our primary key data type to be a string, because the ID is going to be a text value, which is going to be 15 characters long as generated by the application. So actually now we can see how our application will look like when we're using it. And also let's do the same for the provinces. Provinces, we go to fields, and then we change this to be a string data type. So you can add a column, and it will provide you where is this going to sit, and the component type. There are a lot of component types that you can use, the title, and also the data type, and the row and column position, whether it's required or allow editing. But there are other properties of each column that you can specify when you edit. Like for example, now here, there's quite more here that you can specify. But anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. For now, we have a defined two tables for our address book. So the next step will be to see how this works. Let's actually generate the code for categories and provinces, and then we can look into doing the contacts individually, because there's quite a lot of information that we can store for contacts. For example, we can have the full name, the mobile number, the telephone number, email address, and all sorts of other things. So it's not just going to be the two columns. And then for categories, they can be family, friends, work, business, emergency, and all sorts of them. Excuse me. So to demonstrate how we'll do categories, we're going to create a project and then capture the categories as they are. So let's do this. Let's play around in relation to how do you then generate the source code. Let's go to fields. When you're in fields, of course, we can see how our application will look like here. So if you click there on generating the source code, we'll be able to see the generated low code that we're going to use for our application. So we're going to create a B4X project, copy this source code to B4X, and then run the application as it is. So let's create a B4J project and then try to create our project in it. So let's start from scratch. Okay, before we continue with the project, there's a spelling error that is here. So we need to change this from categories to categories. So what we're going to do is to rename the table categories, and then we click apply, and then it's going to be renamed. The fields are already there. You can preview what we were doing there, the name, and then we can see the source code. So we're going to start a new project to create a low-code application based on our designs. So let's start B4J. The assumption that we have made is that you've already set up a development environment, and copied all the needed libraries. So we're going to go to new and select SithasoDaisy5 Low Code BANano SQL, because we're doing a low code application based on IndexedDB, which is wrapped in BANano SQL. So let's call this SD5 AddressBook. So we're going to save everything in our workspace. As earlier indicated, our project is an address book. So we're going to call it address book. We just leave the name as low code book so that it's differentiated. and then our database name is going to be AddressBook. So that's where we're going to be saving everything. So we're going to use this class to speak to the database, and then this is our starting page of the application, and then this is just a blank page. So our application starts here, and everything seems to be set up fine. The start of the application is calling the base layout, which for example is created already in our application. So the base layout has a drawer, as a page view, and an application navbar. So if you run the application now, it's just going to be a blank shell. But what we're going to be doing then is to copy the code that has been generated by the low-code application, and then we copy it. We copy the code to this application here so that it works. So we're going to continue with our application. Let's just kill this process because we don't want it. We don't want to run the application again. So let's follow the instructions in terms of what we have been provided here. So our first step is to add a code module to your project and give it a name, PG categories. So let's copy the name here, and we go to our project, and it's a project, add new model, code model, and we're going to give it a name, PG categories. And then the next step is open the table modal view layout and save it as a categories view. So we copy that, go to our application, and we need to find this table modal view. So we open it, and then we save it as this name that we have been provided, categories view. And then we follow the next step. In the categories view, which is the new one layout, rename TBL to TBL categories. So that's what we're going to do. This is the TBL custom view. We name it TBL categories. And then we follow the next step. In the categories view layout, we rename that MDL to be model categories. Then we do that MDL model categories, and then what we do, we save it. Okay, then save it, and then you go to PG index, add this to the add database schemas. So this is the code that you need to copy this up until then. You add to add database schemas. You go to PG index, which is models, PG index, 8 database schemas is there. Then you add this code here. And then the next thing that you need to do is saying create draw menu. This code here, you add it to create draw menu. Then you go to create draw menu, which is this one, create draw menu. Then you add this code there. Basically this, when the draw item is clicked, then this will create a draw item. And then when it's clicked, it's supposed to open that. And then follow the next thing, draw item menu click. So the item click is saying if it's categories, then you need to show the categories page. Copy, you go to draw item menu click, which is that one there. So this here is saying you need to copy this code here after the suffix, because remember our item that has been headed is PG categories. So there's the prefix PG, and then if it's categories, it's to show categories. and then the categories is still blank. And then what we need to do, copy and paste to your code module. Yeah. So because we're using a database, actually, the way to copy code from this is to go here and click copy. And then we go here and you just paste your code. But now we don't have to copy everything here. We just need to copy up to process globals. So let's do that. Delete everything that is here. And then PG index, there is show here. So what is going to happen? Our application calls PG index when it starts. We have defined the database's address book. And then when our application is starting, it fetches the environment variables, checks if we have a new version and refreshes, and then it calls PG index initialize. PG index initialize, what it does is to load the base layout, which is basically the base layout that we saw here, which is this one. And then it updates the navigation bar title with the app title, which is basically the app title is this one here. And then after that, it calls add database schemas, which basically says these are the tables that we're going to use in our application. And if the table does not exist, create it, And then after that, it creates the drawer menu, which basically means on the drawer menu, it has the categories. Then after that, it resumes. So if we run this, we're going to have a categories item in our drawer. Okay, we have an error here. Dashboard is not defined. So let's just comment this code out. Page is not, okay, let's just ignore this one. So if we run our application now, we will be able to have a user interface for our categories. So we can add our categories. Remember, we can categorize our address book contacts. It's like grouping. So we can call them family, friends, work, business, emergency, neighbors, miscellaneous, and others. That is why we need this, so that when we're capturing details of our contacts, then they can be classified. These here are the names of the details of each contact that we're going to keep, but I'm going to have to do this separately for now. So for now, we're just working on the related tables, which is categories and then provinces. So let's run the application. Let's run application. Now what BANano is actually doing now, it's converting the B4X code and generating JavaScript, CSS, and HTML, so that at the end of the day, we have a running application that we can deploy on our public server. We are going to be deploying this application on Vercel. So I'm going to take you through the process of actually deploying it when we're finished, so that we have a running application. And creating this application is not going to take us a week, it's not going to take us a month, it's just going to take us a couple of minutes to do. And as you go on in relation to learning how to use the user interface, you'll be able to create applications quicker, But this is the first time that we're all doing this. So I'm just explaining things as we go along, so that at the end of the day, we are kind of like on the same page in terms of how the tool works. And the reason that I'm starting with 3 tables is to actually indicate and show you how to create relationships between tables by using selects, and also navigating between the various sections of the screen that we will have, because the drawer usually is the main control navigation point for your application if you decide to have a drawer. It's for navigation, and it makes things a little bit easy when you want to move from one page to the other. So in our drawer, we're going to have provinces, we're going to have categories, and we're going to have the contacts. But then usually one captures the categories and the provinces, then captures the contacts. But as we go along in developing the application, we'll be able to actually capture categories within the contact screen. So this is our application is running now. Sithaso Low Code address book, and this is our drawer. In our drawer we have categories, and if you select the categories, there's nothing on the categories, you know. So let's put this at 80%. If we do Shift Control I, we'll notice that the database has already been created. There's the address book, and there's the categories, but this is blank now. So let's do this. Let's add one of the categories that we want to add. Let's take from here. Let's add family. Nah? Cool. Copy. Let's add a family category. Save. Nah? As you can see here, data may be stale. So if you refresh this and expand on it, there is our family. The system is generating unique keys for each of the records that we're adding. Let's add another category, friends. Save. Refresh. Of course, when you are developing, you might have to access the developer console, but as an end user, we will not see that. So we'll just close it for now. So let's take another category, work, copy. So these are the categories of our contacts that we'll be able to create. Business, business, so at the end of the day, what this helps us is to say we have contacts that we have in our address book, and we're able to categorize them in relation to the various categories that we have provided. And the reason that this is put as a separate table is for us to ensure that there's data integrity in our database, so that, for example, no one is going to type friends and family over and over again. They'll just be able to select from a drop select. So for example, you move from one to another page, you add here, you edit here, you know. Let's maybe call this business 1. So if you do that, see there it has been renamed. So there's CRUD functionality that is already existing here. So let's name it back to business. Let's delete it. You see, this is using the display value business, which we said it was going to be name. And then if you say name, it's deleted. But let's add it back because it's a permanent delete. It's not a soft delete. Then we have created our categories. Okay. Now let's do this. Let's create the provinces. Okay. Now let's close this. Stop our application. Let's go back to our application development. This is the application that is running. Let's go to our low-code application. Now what we want to do is to create the provinces that will be related to each of the contacts that we'll be having. So let's go to edit. Everything is fine. Yes, add its name. No utter increment, no column chooser, and all sorts of other things. So let's preview our table. Content, design, add province, we're fine. Remember, this information is based on how we have defined this. We're saying that the singular is province, so that's why it will say add province. You know, plural is provinces and things like that. That's the width of the model. So this width that you see here is 700 px. So if you want to make it smaller, for example, we go back to our definition here. Let's say we want to make it 500 px. We save that, go to our tables, we preview. You see now it's smaller, but for consistency, because you want to be consistent with your designs, you just design your screens most of the time to be the same width. So let's preview our design. It's like that, yes or no, and then we fire up our low code. There we go. So we create another code module, PG provinces. So we go to our code, our address book. Now this is the code that we're designing. PG provinces. There we go. The second instruction is saying table model view, rename it to provinces. So we go back to our source code of our application. We open up the same layout. We save it as provinces view. And then the next thing that we do, we rename the TBL to be provinces. The TBL is TBL provinces. And then we rename the model to be provinces. And then we select the model to be provinces. And then we save this. Okay. Now what happens is, when the code is executing, it will run the code that is here. Now, we define the schema of our table so that our application knows that this is the information that we're dealing with. We go through to PG index 8 database schemas. There it is. So that's where we go. We're dealing with provinces. The fields is name and ID. If the table does not exist, it's going to create it. And then we're going to add the provinces to the drawer. So create drawer menu, so which is that one there. Okay. And then the next step that we do is when the provinces is selected, then show the provinces. When the provinces is selected, which is drawer item click, when the provinces is selected, show the provinces. Now we're going to go to the provinces code, and what we do, we select everything that is here, copy, we paste it here. And then what we do is to delete everything that is here up until process globals. Okay. So in PG index, when provinces is clicked, it's going to call provinces.show, which is basically this method here. Now what this method does is to load the provinces view. The provinces view we have just created as this one here. Yeah? Which is TBL provinces and the modal. The table is the listing of our provinces. This one is the modal that helps you add and edit each and every province. So the code is called here build provinces, which is the table configuration, build the modal, which basically, let's comment this one out, which basically is the modal that's down here. So the modal is going to be 700. PX is going to have a text field that is hidden, yeah? And it's going to have a name. These are all required. And after that, it mounts the provinces. So it basically means that if there are any provinces that are existing, you open the database and go to the provinces table, because the database is created here. It's created here if it doesn't exist. And then it clears, and then it's order everything by name, then execute the select all, then it shows. And then there's other things. For example, if you click add, then it shows the adding. If we're editing, it shows edit province. If we want to clone, it shows clone, add, of course, the clone, and then delete and all sorts of other. This is the code that controls your CRUD functionality. So currently what we've done is to create two CRUD screens, one to add provinces, the other one to add categories. And these two tables will be used to determine how the information of our contacts is being stored. So because we're saying that our address book should be categorized by province, also should be categorized by the various categories in terms of whether the person is a family member, is a friend, or a neighbor, or things like that. But then we're going to design the look and feel of our contacts so that it works for us, you know. So let's run our address book example. And then when we run it, excuse me, we're going to see now in terms of how everything is mixed together in terms of we have categories working, we have provinces working as individual user interfaces, but then with the contact screen, they will be like mixed together. We have selects to select each and every contact belonging to a particular province and particular category and things like that. So let's do this. So wait for a while until our code is being executed, and then we take it from there. Okay, so it's converting the before-x code to CSS, HTML, and JavaScript. At this particular moment, this code is not tree-shaken, but when we publish our application, we can be able to tree-shake our code so that it loads faster and it works better. And then you'll be able to add more screens if you want. But this is just to show the CRUD functionality now in terms of how can we create CRUD-based application using low code. Because as you noticed, most of the code for this application was generated by the tool, and you only had to change particular sections of the template for you to make the code work. That is what is low code. You get an application that is mostly built for you, but then you tweak here and there and make it a complete working application. You know, if it was a no code application, then it will just generate everything for you. But you know, the low code one, you kind of like also want to learn how things go as you go along. And okay, currently our application of course is running, but it doesn't have a default screen, so it's just blank. But as you can see here now, there are provinces and categories. Provinces are blank because we've not captured anything, but our categories are there because we've already captured them. You know, we added categories and things like that. Let's go to provinces. Now, if you look at the back end, the back end, of course, now has categories, which is what we did, and then the provinces. Let's add a province. Let's call it Eastern Cape, South Africa. Eastern Cape, we have a province there. Data may be unstable. We refresh, you know, there is Eastern Cape. And then we have Northern Cape. Northern Cape. And then we also have Western Cape. And then we have Gauteng. And then we have Limpopo. And then we have KwaZulu-Natal. So there's our provinces. So we can categorize 6 here. Actually, we have 9 provinces. What's that one? Eastern Cape, Gauteng, Mpumalanga, etc., etc. I mean, you can capture as many provinces as you want. But anyway, what I wanted to do here is just to demonstrate that currently our address book has categories and has provinces. So if, for example, we delete the 7 here, we delete Mpumalanga here, it's tail, refresh, it is not there anymore. So let's add it again. Mpumalanga, you save it, refresh, it's back there, but now with the new index, but the ID is there. So our application works. We have created categories that can be used. We have created provinces that can be used. Okay, let's just increase our screen to 100%. So we have generated 2 screens within a space of less than an hour, and it works. You are able to add, testing. Okay, I'm going to put 0 here so that you see. Oh wow, categories, provinces. I didn't save. Okay, 0 testing. Oh, I pressed enter and it moved to the testing. We're able to change it. We added it, we added it, we deleted it. So we have a crude application that is working within a couple of minutes. So the next phase, we're going to be looking in terms of how do we link this information to the contacts list. But for now, that's all. Okay, the third part of this tutorial, we're going to look in terms of creating the contact screen. I've already written a blog thread here in relation to how we go about doing this. So we spoke about the AddressBook project, the various tables that we will have there, and then the contact. You see the various fields here, different locations, and then this is how the contact will look. It will have the full name, mobile, telephone. So we will base basically on this design here. So there's a full name, then there's a mobile, then there's a telephone, then there's an email address, and then there's a category, which is a select, and then there's street address 1, street address 2, and then city state, and then province, and then postal code. So the category and the provinces are going to be derived from the 2 tables that we've already created. So this tutorial here talks a lot in relation to the low code tool itself, in terms of explaining what SithasoDaisy is, what BANano is. Then we spoke about the backend, and then the various templates that you can use. We're using this template. This is from the GitHub. So you post this to your additional folders in P4X. And then how to get started. This explains that we need to get BANano, SithasoDaisy5, the source code for the low code app, and then which is basically sitting on the GitHub, and then the online version of the application, which is basically on the Vercel deployment. So we're talking about creating the project, which is what we have been doing on this video here, and then editing it, choosing the various different databases that you can, then defining the tables, and then changing the table definitions to meet our needs, and then the various things that we want to keep. For example, this is an example of an Excel spreadsheet of an address book, but we have extra things on hours, and then we're going to be creating this now so that at the end of the day we get the same look in terms of our screen, the various components that we can use for the fields, and then I'll add contacts, like for example clean the borders here, then it finally appearing like this, and then after that we might add the adding functionality here, so that whilst you are adding a contact, you can add a province or you can add a category without moving in and out of the screens. And then this will be the final version. And then the contacts, the provinces and the categories are called foreign tables because they are related to the main one. This is how they look. And we're creating them here, and then how to link a foreign table to the main one. For example, the category in the contact is linked with categories by ID, and the display value is the name on it, so that when you select on the select, it shows the name and the ID is the value, and this one is the ID is the key, the one is the value. So you go to foreign tables and specify the key relationships, and then the generated source code, and then which is what we basically been doing. So there's already a blog post about this on the B4X forum that you can relate to. So what we're going to be doing now is to look in terms of, this is the low code tool. You can fork this repo, or you can download it and then just run the application on your web server. We're using Laragon as a web server to deploy this, so on Laragon it's sitting here, there it is, that's the 5 low code, there it is, cool. And then there's my profile. So we're going to be creating our contacts table now, which is going to have to kind of like look like this. So we'll be referring to it as we go along. So some of this stuff is required here, some of it is not. So we're already back to the to our low code tool. We called it contacts now, but it's fine. We've already added 2 fields here, but the thing is we were just testing our tool. So what we're going to do, we're going to take the fields that we already have here, and then we're going to copy this, and these are the fields that we want to have. So let's go here, define the field names to add to this table. So we're going to post them here, and then we click apply. So what this will do is to create the fields. We see it has created the fields based on the titles that we have. If we preview this now, it's going to look like this. So it's not exactly how we want it, but it's close, So if you already have a structure of your form, defined somewhere, then you can just copy and paste it here. So we don't need the name, because we already have full name. So we're going to remove this. Okay. Now we have a full name, which is basically at the top there, and it's a required field. So what we're going to do, we're going to say that this is required. It's visible enabled. Let's just see this. Okay, let me just refresh this quickly. So this is going to be sitting at row 1, column 1, and it's going to be visible is enabled and all sorts of other things. Remember, the ID is automatically generated, so it's not visible. And then the second thing that is sitting on row 2 is the mobile number, which basically we have two required, mobile and telephone. So what we need to do in this row, we need to have one part and one part here. So how we do that? This is going to be on row 2.1, and the telephone is going to be on row 2 also, but okay, we messed something up. Let's refresh. I don't know, this bug, I need to sort it out. 2.1, and it's required. That's the mobile. I need to sort this bug out because I don't know why am I having it. And then telephone is going to sit on 2.2. So if we review our screen now, we have telephone, full name, we have mobile, we have telephone, just like we are having it here, you know. So the next one is going to be email. So let's refresh this. I'm sure I'll figure this thing out in terms of what's wrong. So instead of text box here, we're going to select telephone, because we want, when the person is typing it using a mobile phone, then it shows the numerical keypad. So also this one, telephone 2.2. Okay. Now we have that one sorted out, and it's also required. The telephone is required. The telephone is required here, but we'll just leave it out. Okay, so as not required. Okay, now the email address, which is on row 3, 1, 2, 3, is taking the whole space. So the email address, we're going to have it using email component so that it validates that it's an email. But then it's sitting on row 3. Email address, then it's on row 3. Now let's decrease this to row 3. So let's preview again. So here is row 3, the email address. The email address is required. Yeah. So what we'll need to do is make it required. Email address is required. Okay. I think my laptop is a little bit slow. Anyway, the next one is the category. So that is on row 1, 2, 3, 4. So on row 4, we have a category. Row 4, we have a category. But now this is a select, a drop down. So category is a select. We're going to make it a select group because we're going to make it to have an add button at the end. So that's that. We want people to choose the categories that a contact belongs to, and then it's on row 4. Let's move that row and then refresh again. I apologize for this bug, but it will sort it out. So it's required also because a category needs to be selected for the person to be saved on the database. Okay. So the next one is the address, street address 1 and street address 2. So let's do a refresh, and then street address 1 and street address 2. This is a text box is required, sitting on row 5. And then the other one is sitting on row 6. The other one is sitting on row 6. And one of them should be required. So one of them should be required. We'll make the address 1 required. Okay. Now the next one is city and state on row 7. City, there it is, and state on row 7. City is required, it's sitting on row 7. City on row 7 is required. Let's use this one, a little bit tricky. Wow. I'm not really sure what is going on. Okay, city and state, this one, let me just see if I change this here and press tab. That's the same thing. State is not required, it's sitting on row. Let's preview. Okay, full name, mobile, telephone, email address, category. Select the category. Okay, and then street to city, state. Okay, you can make state compulsory, isn't it? Yeah, let's make state compulsory. Refresh. Let's make it compulsory as required. Yeah. Okay, so it's on 7.2, and then the province and the postal code, these are on the same column, same row, which is 8. So province, we're going to make it to be also a select group. Postal code, we're going to make it to also be telephone, kind of like input, because we're expecting it to be in numerical values. But these are sitting at 8, at row 8. So 1, to fix this. 8.1. The other one is 8.2. So this was on 11. There's some latency in the display, and I'm not sure why is it doing what it is doing. So this is in row 8. So if we do our preview now, you see this is 8.1 and 8.1. So we need to make this to be in the same row. So this will make it at 8.2. So it splits the row into 2 equal sections, that is 6 and 6 padding spaces. No, this is this one, so it's 8.2. Maybe what I need to do here is just not refresh the screen up until someone clicks save or something, you know. So the province is the required thing, because now the way that it's working is a little bit irritating. Actually, not even a little bit irritating, it's frustrating. So we're going to make this required so that if someone enters the information, then it does not save, you know. So 8.2, then we preview our screen. There we go. It's almost close to this one. So full name, mobile telephone, full name, mobile telephone, and then category, street address 2, city, state, city state, and then that. See, this form is a little bit bigger here. So what we can do, perhaps increase also this form that we have here. So what we're going to do is to go back to the table, contacts, and then we edit this. We make it 800px. So the ID we know, but then the display value was name. Now it's going to display the full name when we want to delete someone. So we want to have an alpha chooser here, which will basically show something like this based on the full name, and then it will base the what displays there on the initials. We want to also have a column chooser so that we see which fields that we can show, like for example these ones here. So because it's a bigger table, so let's test our design and see how it's going to look like now. So it's a little bit bigger. Yes, see, it's almost close. Yeah, I think 800 is fine for this. So we're done designing our form to be like in our tutorial. So what we need to do now is categories, when they are loaded, they need to load from the categories that we have captured before, and our provinces need to load from there. So for now, we need to create a relationship, between the category that is here and the category that is here. So we go to our contacts, we go through to the category field, which is that one. It's a select group at forward 1. So we need to do an edit. Now, this is what we're showing there. We're not going to need that. We're going to need the information to be sourced from the categories table. We click search so that it finds the fields in that table. It's going to be the ID, that is the key, and then the value is going to be name, which basically means that when you select the category there, internally it will store the ID of the category, and then what you see when the select will be the name. So we select apply here. Okay, now we do the same for province. Province, we want it to be sourced from, it's not these ones. We want it to be sourced from province. So provinces, we select there. So our province here and our category here are foreign tables to this particular contacts table. So now the categories will be blank, and then this will be blank. So what we need to do now, you see this one has a border here, and we don't want to have borders. So we're going to remove the borders. Remove border on components, say yes. So yes, because that border, it helps when you want to have an elevation on your components. Then you create components that have a border and you can add elevation, then it looks nice. So basically, someone will come here and add a contact, and then they will be able to get the information that is here, and then this will load categories, this will load the provinces, then one will enter the postal code. So let's try this out. Let me see something. Oh, now this has an add button. Okay, look, for now, let's not add the add buttons. We're going to remove this here, the append icon. We're also going to remove the append icon on this one here. The append icon on this one here. We'll deal with that a little bit later. Just want us to take this one day at a time kind of a thing. So we have our user interface for the contact here. So this will help us to store the details of the contacts, and then each one will have a category and each one will have a province. And then let's generate the source code for this. That will work for us. So we're going to go through the same phases that we've been going through. You know, these are our fields. These are our user interface. You know, some of the columns that are here. Column visible, false, false, false. Okay, we need to fix that one here. You know, some of these columns are not showing. Okay, we save. You see, when we load the provinces and we load the categories, the default values, and all sorts of other things. Okay, cool. These are our user interface. Okay, let's not worry much about that. Okay, I'll have to fix this one. But anyway, let's do this. Some of our columns are not visible. So what we need to do is to go back here, visible, column type, and then column visible, you know, and then focus on. I'm going to decrease this to a little bit. Yeah. So what we're trying to do here is to say we want to focus on the full name when someone is capturing a new, and then column visible. I'll have to update the source code behind this so that when we add the fields, when we're adding them from here, then the column is automatically visible. And then we want the full name to show. We want the mobile to show. You know, then we want. Do you want the email to show? We want the email to show. Column visible, yes. Let's show the email. But then the email, we can make it to be a mail to kind of a thing. So basically, I have to change it here to be an email, which basically means that it will show like an email with a link. Category, we want it to show, you know, yeah. And then let's refresh this. Category of the person, we want the category to show, yes. Okay, cool. What else do you want to show? Please just bear with me while I'm trying to work this thing out. We will be fixing it so that it doesn't do this refresh thing that it's doing now. We want the city to show. Let me take some notes actually. Adding columns, make columns visible. Okay, and then do you want to show the states now? Let's just leave it. Let's show the province. Remember, this will show like this. When a column is visible, it's primary color here, and when it's not visible, then it's dark. So you can always toggle them, you know. So this just has more kind of a control for us. Then we can also just check our foreign linkages. So as you can see, the categories ID name, foreign table, foreign field, foreign display, provinces. So that's still intact. I think for now we are quite fine. If you wanted to have default values, you can specify default values here. So we have the column types, we have changed them. Let's just hide these columns. We have changed that one to be an email. We don't want any live editing on the rows of the table. So we'll just leave that as it. So we're still having that contact form. Let's increase this to 80 again. So let's preview. Code was still fine. Our design is still intact. So required, we have some required information. These ones are visible, that one is not visible. These ones are active. If someone is not active, if some field is not active here, it won't be added to the design. Like example, now we've made this one inactive. So if we go to our preview of our form, it's not there anymore because it's considered as if it's not part of the design. So what we'll do, we'll make it active again. Let's refresh. And then let's make it active again. Postal code is active, so that at the end of the day, it's part of the design that we want to have. So let's preview it again. All right, everything is still fine. Now what we need to do, let's check our low code, whether it speaks to what we want. Okay, so let's just check a few things. Okay, the margins and the padding, I also need to fix the margin and padding. I still need to fix when you're adding codes, when you're adding fields. Okay, cool, let's do this. Okay, telephone is not visible, street address is not visible. It's fine. City, state, the postcode is not visible. All right, so far everything seems to be going well. We'll just have to fix the other bugs that we have here. It's not a train smash like these ones. I'll fix it later on when I'm updating the application, but for now let's just test our code if it's working. So let's do this. We start again by creating a code model. Let's go back to our project, AddressBook. We add a code model, and then the following step is to go through to the layouts. So we're going to call it contacts view. Copy the contacts view, table model view, and then is that one. Oh, my laptop is slow. That's why we have latency on the display of the screen. I'm running an 8 gig laptop here, and thing is, my laptop is broken. I went for fixing and I borrowed my son's laptop, and it's not a coding laptop. So TBL contacts, there we go. Then, and I have a lot of tabs running here. Okay, that's another thing. So model contacts, and then we save it. So we're done with the user interface skeleton. So this is the abstract designer. So if you see here, this is a row, grid columns 12 and things, and then some other settings, and then inside it there's a column. It's taking 12 spaces also, and then there's a table. So most of this information on this table is updated by the code, and then the modal, and the modal is just sitting. It will sit on the page view. So we've done that, and then what we need to do, we're finished with this part. So let's rather close some of these tabs that are not working, conserve some memory. So in PG index, you go and add this in add database schemas. So we go to PG index, add database schemas. This is going to create the context table in our IndexedDB if it does not exist, and then we'll be able to save information in it. And then this one is saying create drawer menu. Or let me note here the icon of the drawer menu, drawer menu. These are things that I'll have to actually update on the application. And then create drawer menu. I'm going to add this on top because in actual sense these provinces and categories should usually sit on settings because it's information that you capture kind of like once, you know. So we can put them at the bottom there and just add them as settings, and okay, for now I'm just going to remove this SVG here. Okay, and then because this is what we'll be using most of the time, so let's make the default page to be pg contacts.show, so that when the application starts, it just goes to the contacts page, which is this one here. So that will be the show this page as default. Okay, now what we need to do, this means that if, for example, you have open categories, then on the menu you can always go back, you know, and then and select contacts. But what I will do for the categories and provinces, we'll just select back so that it just goes to the contact string. And then the next thing that we want to do is to have the item click thing on the drawer, so that when the drawer is clicked, we have item click, we have contacts showing. Okay, and then the next version is to copy all of our code. Let's keep doing this. You copy from here and then you paste it here. Okay, so there's some adjustments, of course, that we need to do here because I'm developing this low code thing as we go along, you know. So I'm going to remove all of this because we've already pasted it to the code that we need. And then there's our model, the foreign keys. Okay, we're not going to need this one because we're not needing the whole record. I'll explain it to you. And then we show the page and then go back to dashboard, add a column, category, all sorts of things. You see that email now? See, it's showing the email address. Yeah, it will show the email address. So province, postal code, cool. And then when we mount, we load everything because we really need it. Okay, column options. We're not using this because there's no inline editing, so I'm going to comment it out. These are going to be used when adding the selects, but we're not going to use it for the table. So that's why I'm commenting it out, because it's not okay. This one I'm going to comment out. Refresh, remount the contact, which basically calls this. So mode, yeah. In a multi-user environment, you want your categories and provinces to be dynamic. So each and every time you execute an add, it will go and read them from the database and load them, you know. So what is needed here is the loading. So this is fine. We edit and then we clone. We do the same, and then we edit. Basically everything here looks fine. Load the categories, load the provinces, delete a row, clone. When we clone, we want it to fetch stuff from the database. Change the row. We're not going to use this per se because we don't have inline editing, so we can comment it out. Load categories. This one we're not going to use because we're not reading the records, so I'm going to comment this one out. What we're doing here is, when you load the categories, we just want the name and the ID, and nothing else. So if you had this, it will be loading the whole record, assuming that we use it for something else. This, we're not going to... This might be used, reason being, this might be used, because if it's not used, it will show the ID. But anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay, and then compute that, default things, get validation of the information that we search is required. So the ID, the full name, the mobile, the email, and things. Then when you click yes on the mobile, it validates, and then it pauses, then it adds the information to the database. If it's in CRUD mode, it's creating C. If it's create, it's updating, and then indicates that it's saved. And then we build a model here. So we said it's 800. And then this is building our grid. It's build all the rows that we want, and then add the various components that we need. Now, we just need to fix this particular issue here. And this is, okay, this seems to be a tab issue. Okay, I'll just have to copy and paste it to the others because it has a default value. What this thing does, I'll explain it to you just now. These are margins and padding. For example, A is for all, X is for left and right, Y is for top and bottom, top is for top, B is for bottom, L is for L, and right. So you can specify the margins that you want here for each of the values that you need, so that these can be used. So there's usually a default of, I think, 20. That's why these are being specified here now. So let me just paste this here. I think we have it also down here. I'm going to delete the other lines. So I'm going to delete this line. I'll look into this in terms of what's going on here in the next update of this tool. Let me remove this. Okay, so you see postal code is sitting at 82, the province is sitting at 81, state is sitting at 72, city is sitting at 71, and then address 2 is sitting at 61. This one is sitting at 51. This one, let's just move it. This one category is sitting at 41, and email address is sitting at 31, telephone is sitting at 22, and mobile is sitting at 21, and then the full name is sitting at 11, and ID is sitting at 11, but it's not visible. So what we're going to do, I need us to run this to see if there's anything that we've left out. So if we go to reset and go to logs, there's actually nothing here except for this. We can comment this out. Warning. Okay, let's just add ignore here because this might be used in the future, but we don't want it now. So what the what the compiler does is to ignore any errors on that line. Excuse me. It's usually better not to have any warnings in your compilation, you know. Oh, it still has not picked this one. This computer is really slow. ID tools, let me see here. Configure process timeout 1000. Okay, cool, that's fine. So we don't have any warnings. So what we need to do still is we need to run this application to see if there's anything that we are missing out, you know. So we have our contacts, we have our provinces, we have our categories. Let's run the application and see what's happening with our address book. So this has been a journey. I'm sure you kind of get the gist now in terms of what we are trying to achieve here. Low code, it helps you to create applications at a quicker pace. In most of the cases, you get a tool that you actually define the parameters that you want to create your code in. Like, for example, we started with the backend in particular to this case. We defined our project, we added tables, we added fields, because it's the outlook that we want to follow in terms of the information that we want is information that will be stored in a database, and in this particular case, IndexedDB, which is a browser-based database. We can use Pocket-based, we can use MySQL. I will show you how to do that. At the end of the day, we've created an application with 3 crude screens. We created categories, we created provinces, and now we're creating the actual contact for our address book so that we can capture information of the people that we want to be in our address book. And these people will have different categories, and they will have different provinces and states and things. So at some stage, of course, we'll be able to add functionality to import information from an Excel spreadsheet. We can add functionality to also export the information to an Excel spreadsheet. There's some JavaScript libraries to do that. I will show you as we go along in this process, because I want this to cover importing of information. I want it to cover exporting of information to Excel, so that at the end of the day, it covers the whole value chain, and also add some charts so that you can see that we can create an application with this particular tool bit by bit, of course, but this is just the basic. What it helps you in relation to this is you plan an application because you want to solve a particular problem. Then you plan it out in terms of what it's going to use, and then you can always change and chop your code, your user interface, and design it according to what you want at the end of the day by just regenerating the code from the tool itself. So we currently do not have any errors in our applications. Of course, there's some unused code that we need to trace at some stage, but let's see how it works. We've defined it to start in the contact screen. So it starts in the contact screen now. Of course, you can have a splash screen and things like that if you want. But before, of course, we did have our drawer. So we moved our categories and provinces to be under settings now. So they are still here, you know. And then provinces. See, so there's 7 here. I think, what is it? Northern Cape, Eastern Cape, Free State, Western Cape. I think we're missing Free State. We have that. Free State. Then do we have Northwest here? Northern Cape. I'm missing Northwest. Yeah, we're missing Northwest province. Yeah, it was those 2. Okay, and so we have 9 provinces in South Africa. So yeah, cool. Now we go back to our context. So our context is, let's show the telephone column, let's show the streets, let's show that one, let's show that one, let's show that one. You see, so we can perhaps decrease our screen, province postal code. So let's try and add a contact. So we click add, it shows in our screen. We click add, let's say Mbanga 081, okay, 081 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, whatever. Mbanga at lowcode.com. The category, now Mbanga is family. Street address, my street. Street address 2 is not compulsory. The city is East London. The state is ECX, whatever. The province, I'm in the Eastern Cape province. The postal code is 201. Then we save it. Let's just leave this out and save. So validation is working. The postal code is required. So let's do this 5201 and then we save it. There is our person. Now remember, let's hide the telephone. We have set this email column to be that. So basically, as you can see at the bottom left of the screen is saying mail to Mbanga. So if we click there, it's going to activate the default email sending application to send an email. And then the province, you see here, it's showing the ID of the province. So we need to change that, the 5201. And then when we edit it, it's supposed to work. Now let's see what is it that we are doing wrong. Developer console, what happened? Cannot read properties of undefined. BANano, edit mode, reading ID, blah 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 blah. Okay, we'll have to figure out what that error is. So to change this province ID to the actual province ID, what we need to do is to go on computed columns, So remember, on the contacts, we have a load province. So what this does is to create some kind of a dictionary of provinces object where it stores the ID and the name of each province, so that when we show our information, it gets fixed properly and shows what is fine. So on our compute value province, it does that. For each value that we have, it will read the province and then it will return the province name. So what we need to do is to specify that on the column for the province, which is this one here, we need a computed value tvl contacts dot set column compute value. So each and every time a province is found, this needs to call this subroutine here. Let's say ignore that code, so that it works. Okay, now let's see if that will work. Also, the compute needs to be done for the category. So on the add column category, we need to do the same. tbl contacts dot set column compute value category. So in that column category, execute the compute value category method, because this is kind of a flexible thing. You can write whatever code that you want to write to be able to do whatever you want to do when a value is found. So in this particular case, we're computing the value that needs to be returned and displayed on that table. So let's run this again and see now if with the person that we have added, we are able to see the right category and the right province. So let's run it out. So these are the little things that one can do in relation to making their low code work. But because when we were defining that particular column, we did not flag that we want the value to be computed, then it didn't recognize that particular feature. But we can flag that particular value needs to be compiled, and then automatically that code will be linked. So I'm going to show you how we do that, because the value that is saved in the backend is the category ID, and the value that is saved for the province is the province ID in the database, so that it can always refer back to the actual information that is stored in the database. So when we are not displaying selects for inline editing on your table, then you need to have the computed values. So it's something that I just accidentally left out, but it's something that is easy to fix when you are debugging your application to make sure that it works properly. So let's run the application again and then just see if the display of our contacts is working properly. We will have to fix, of course, why the edit is not working. I've noted some notes down in relation to the bugs that are available in the application. So we will actually fix those. So let's wait for the compilation to actually take place. Okay, so it's almost finished with the transpilation, that is converting the B4X code that you see here into JavaScript and CSS. So let's see, you see now it's saying province Eastern Cape. The category is family also. So yeah, so if we clone more people here, so it seems like our buttons are not working. Shift Control I, we just need to fix our bug. So there's an error here in a promise next ID. Wow, clone. Okay, cool. I'll have to figure out why is this doing that, but anyway, its clone is editing. But let's just exit this. So let me show you on the code that we're building. If we say category, we edit it. Because we're not doing inline editing, we need to say compute value here, and then we save it. And then also the same with the province, we need to say compute value here. And then if you compile the code, and then on the add column, you will see that now it has this code. You see, we added this code manually, so it has this code. The only other thing that I think we'll have to what I need to do, if the column is normal, then compute value. If it has a relationship, if it has a relationship. Now, I think the other thing that I saw here is we are having an error with this. Yeah, that's where the error is. Cloning and the editing. So what we're going to do for our address book, we are going to basically just probably comment that out. Let's just see next ID. Get a unique 15 character alphabet key, edit mode, edit mode, edit mode, edit mode, edit mode. Okay, I can comment this out for now. I'll have to find out why it is not doing what it's supposed to do. SID contacts add edit mode. Is this problem here? Up to the next ID. I have to find out why is it not working. It was working for the other screens. Bugs. Let's just comment it out for now. I'll have to find out why it is not working. It's working for the others, but not working for this one. Let's run it again and see if it's going to run. Yeah, so this is one part of programming that takes a lot of time when you have to find a bug in your application. I mean, if sometimes you don't know where to look for things, it can take you an hour, it can take you a day. Sometimes you discover that it was just a comma and all sorts of things. So fortunately, you see here, there's a release here. You can run your application in debug mode, and then you will be able to pick errors if you're fortunate and fix them quicker. So let's just run this application and see if we're going to be able to sort out the issue of the edit and the cloning and things. But so far we are going very well in relation to our application. Let's just wait for the BANano transpiler to convert our code from B4X to JavaScript, and then we can take it from there. Oh, I think I'm seeing something here now. Let's just look at something that's related to the columns. Okay, let's go to our context again and see what's going on. I want to do Shift-Control-I so that I can see what's happening in the debug screen. If we add a new contact, it works well. We save, then it shows our validation. Cool. Let's do an edit. We still have undefined ID. Undefined ID. PG context, TBL context, edit row. So the problem is in edit row. Load categories, item. TBL context edit row. So we're getting an error that says item ID. Edit row. Okay, this has been a very strange one. I'm going to try and add another record here and see what's going to happen. Testing contact 1 2 3 4 5 6. Email at email.com. Choose the category friends. Address 1 2 3 1 2 3 city. I don't know. Province. Pumalanga. Postal code 1 2 3 4 5. Let's save. It has been saved. Let's go and look at the back end. Provinces, categories, contacts. Oh, this is interesting. Very interesting. You know what? I think I forgot. The ID is not numeric. So what did I do? Let's go back to our database definition. See, something is amiss. A database schema context ID is not auto increment, but now the ID field is an integer. Now that's a very big boo-boo. So basically it means that we have an issue with our app. So let's go back to our app. The structure of our app here, it's saying that the ID is auto increment, basically meaning that this is where the issue is. Data type is supposed to be a string. So that is why our application was having a bug due to that ID being as integer, because it's saved as an integer. Remember, on categories, the ID is a string. The province is text, actually, text or string. The context, now this is a non-value, and this is 988. So I can delete this one, and then if I resave this, and then I do an edit, there it shows, you see, friends, Pumalanga, and I save it. If I clone it again, as a testing contact 1, and I clone it again, testing contact 2, I clone it again, you know. So if I go here and refresh, the thing is, my ID, because I had defined it as an integer in my application, is creating integers. So I need to delete this table. I need to delete this table and start this from scratch. Delete. Why is deleting the thing? Oh, wow. How do I delete? Refresh. See, it won't exist now because it's not there. But anyway, we see where the bug is, and that is what we need to solve out. So we need a way to be able to redo the contacts database and fix that error. Okay, our app is working. We managed to fix what was wrong with it. It's able to edit and save the information. If we look at the back end, we have the categories, we have the contacts, and our field name ID now is text. But this was not possible just to override this to use text, because when we are creating the table itself, it was built using primary key of integer. So for this to be able to work in the source code, what had to happen was that we had to drop the table, which is the contacts table, because we're still just developing our application. So I ran the code and dropped the table so that it's deleted completely, because we cannot run an alter column here or alter table command here. And then after running that command, it cleared the table, and then I commented the code out, and then I recreated the table from scratch so that it's using a string or a text primary key. So that's why you are able to see that now we're able to save the information in the database. So as I was indicating, the process of debugging an application is when an error happens and you need to find out what is the cause of that particular error, and then you need to find a way of sorting it out. So as you can see here, everything is working as expected within our application. We're able to clone records and delete them. For example, let's say this is NLF4, and save it, and then we're also able to delete it, you know. So our application is working as it's supposed to be. And then we have actually go a little bit further and actually deployed it. So if you happen to go to the deployment of the application, as you can see here, if you open the application is published on Laragon as S25 AddressBook. So the next step of what we need to do is to actually deploy our application. We run our application, it gets published to this particular folder, which basically is here. There is the code there. So what we're going to do to publish our application is to actually go through to GitHub, and then we deploy our application there. It basically means that we take the source code that is here, because remember, before X generated the CSS scripts, JavaScript, and styles for all our things. Remember, at this particular moment in time, we had not forsaken this application, and here's the manifest file and the index. So what you do, you just copy all of this and then you paste it to your GitHub, show in Explorer, and then you paste it there, and then after that, of course, when it's tree shaken, the application will be smaller, but this is just everything here on SithasoDaisy5 and everything else. So after it is copied, you publish your project to GitHub, and then you go to Vessel, and then you create a new project. So let's see what's going to happen here. Okay, still waiting for it to refresh. Let's just see. What I've done in this folder was to also include the source code of the application itself and then the low code generator scripts. So that's what you are seeing here. So let's call this version 1.01, and then you commit to GitHub. You must have a GitHub account, and then you go to your Vercel because you want to deploy the application. Vercel, there it is. So what we're going to do is you have to add new project. This is the project, this is already here, but to create a new project, you just go and add a new project. Let's publish this, but this will automatically deploy the application, So you import a project with a Git repo, you import it, and then you say deploy. So what we're doing now is to deploy the application to the internet so that it's accessible. Because the database that is being used is IndexedDB, so there's no other configuration that we have to do, because the application will basically run within the internet browser and things, So we've deployed our application, and then it's saying continue to dashboard. But if you do have a local web server that you want to run the thing in, then you can deploy to that the application, and then you can run it under a subdomain. So let's visit the application. Then this is the link of the application. So we've built an application from scratch. Here it is, categories. Let's test. Test category 1. Remember, the data is stored under this address. Provinces. Test province 1. So contacts. Let's add a contact here. Contact 1. Okay, I'm just going to decrease this maybe to 80. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At ee.com or whatever. Category, test category, street, city, state, test province 1, postal code, etc. So the application is running directly on the internet now because we have deployed it and it's working. So that's how you would go about developing an application and publishing it to this free hosting application. you can host an application here, and it can speak to a web backend that uses REST API. For example, Pocket Host application can be accessed via this, but I mean, there's no need to host Pocket Host applications on Vessel, because Pocket Host works as a web server by itself. So we are done with our application. From this, we use a low-code builder to create our application from scratch. We designed the user interface, we designed the backend, we fixed some bugs that we had, because when you're coding, sometimes you happen to have bugs. Then we deployed the application on the internet and are able to access it. We use GitHub to store the information of the application, because it's easy to publish information from GitHub. View on GitHub, which is online. So this is where the application is hosted. And as soon as you publish to Vessel, what it does is to create a link on your application there, and then you can just click on that, and then you have everything running for you. So basically, this is that. Remember, as I was saying, this is another link, and this is another link. So it's two different links, because we redeployed the application. So if you refresh this, it's not accessing the same information as here, because this is another deployment and this is another deployment. But this was the original deployment that it did. So any changes that are being made are going to be made here in relation to the source code, in relation to the changes that we made. And this one was the latest deployment. Anyway, that is it. You have learned how to create an application with a low code generator. You've designed your user interface. You didn't write any CSS, you didn't write any HTML, you didn't write any JavaScript. BANano is before X transpile all the code for you to the respective things that we need, and you have a fully functional address book that has relationships between provinces, categories, and your contacts, and it's working. Yeah, you can capture the same information here. So let me just close this. Of course, you can go ahead and then change your fav icon, change the title of the application, and add pictures and do some other things in relation to this application. But this covers it. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. It's long, but at least, you get to understand how everything works and how to do things. A lot has not been covered, of course, because what we wanted to do is just to cover the basics to get you up and running in terms of creating different screens, establishing relationships between them, and then navigation and clean user interface and the ease of use and all sorts of other things. So thank you so much.